Broken Futures by Scarlet Ribbon. Sweet Apple Acres. Applejack had always been sure that the farm would never change, that her family would always be bucking apples. No matter where her family had lived, they always kept on with the family business of planting trees and feeding the locals. Applejack was always a hard-working pony, but she was also a proud pony, and the one thing she'd always prided herself on was the Sweet Apple Acres name. A farm that did everything by hoof to provide the best for the ponies around them, making apple pies and fritters, selling the fruit of their labours at the Ponyville market. But then the war changed everything. Suddenly food was needed, not just at home, but at places away from home. At first, the Apple family decided to continue as they always had, bringing food to market and feeding those close to them. It wasn't long, however, before friends were pulled into the war efforts. The Crystal Empire slowly consumed everything as it ruthlessly cut down any pony that opposed their march, and the Apple family was pulled into the bloody massacre. Cousin Brayburn was the first casualty in the Battle of Appaloosa. Big Macintosh had suffered the most with his loss, and it was Big Macintosh that first had the idea. The Apple family of Sweet Apple Acres was going to join the war effort. Sweet Apple Acres was built on growing and nurturing, not destroying and killing. Big Macintosh took a step back as Applejack advanced on him. I ain't gonna let you go killing no pony, she continued. I don't care what they've done. You're an apple and you're gonna grow apples.
We apples are strong, AJ, he countered. Equestria needs me on the front lines. Growing apples ain't gonna help the war effort none.
He was backed into a corner now, forced to sit down and retreat further from Applejack's deathly stare. And how's being a dead pony helping gonna help us here on the farm?
It's not about the farm, AJ. It's not about us either. Equestria needs us to help. If you knew what was good for you, you'd be going too.
Applejack froze. He had a point. The Apple family wasn't accomplishing anything by sitting back while others went to the front lines to fight. They couldn't even help the war effort from here, not even providing food. The apples wouldn't survive the trip to the front. She shook her head in defeat. I know, Mac. She sighed, afraid of what might come next. I don't know what we'd do here on the farm without you. I'm scared. Big Macintosh stood up and held Applejack in a tender embrace.
I know you are, little sis, I know. But this is what I gotta do. Can't sit here at home doing nothing. Cousin Brayburn died protecting what he loved, and I love my family. I love the farm. I can't live with myself knowing I'm sitting here without doing the right thing by you all.
Applejack just nodded, a tear rolling down her cheek as she gripped Big Mac in a firm embrace. Eventually, Big Macintosh released her and turned away. Tears had streaked down his face.
Now, I'm hoping you don't mind, he said, but I've got an appointment with the recruiter.
He pushed Applejack away and turned towards the front door, headed off toward Ponyville. Applejack felt alone and abandoned as she watched her brother trot away out of sight.
Cleaned out my desk at work yesterday. I haven't told Caroline, don't know what to say. So I get dressed up in my shirt and tie. She fixes me lunch and kisses me goodbye. And I drive around, but I'm going nowhere. Down county 2 lanes that lead nowhere. Through endless fields of Bermuda grass. by wheels and wasting gas.
Her brother was gone. Sure, he would get back to pack his things and head off to the front, but she couldn't stop him. The Crystal Empire would pay. Applejack wasn't sure exactly how, but she would make them pay. Determination burned away the tears in her eyes as she turned away from the door. She threw her building rage into a swift buck, slamming the front door closed and shaking the entire house. Something in the pantry rattled, and Applejack heard the telltale sound of food crashing to the floor. "Horse apples," she muttered under her breath. While the angry kick had vented her growing frustrations, she wasn't about to make another pony clean up a mess she'd made herself. Directing that anger inward, Applejack stormed over to the pantry to clean up her mistake. The pantry was a mess. A loaf of bread, a jar of honey, some canned dog food, and several apples were laying scattered across the floor. The jar had shattered, splattering honey across all of the lower shelves and making a huge sticky mess out of the floor. Applejack could hear Winona running, clearly attracted by the crashing sound. "Winona, no!" Applejack cried as the dog dove past her and into the pantry. It was too late. The pup was rolling in honey and shattered glass, somehow miraculously managing not to cut herself up. "At least the honey is good for cuts," Applejack mumbled to herself as she carefully extracted the dog from the pantry. Winona had done her best to get completely covered in the honey, but Applejack sighed in realization that she'd have to wash the dog before honey was tracked all over the house. Or would she? If she could keep the dog in the pantry, there wouldn't be the honey spread all over the house. Keeping a grip on the wayward animal, Applejack ran to the kitchen to grab Winona's bowl and a can opener, and she returned to the pantry, closing the door behind her. She set the bowl down and went to work, opening one of the cans of dog food. Cans. The idea struck her like lightning. The apples didn't have to fight in a war. They could support the war effort from home. Soldiers needed food, and good fruit was a critical part of their diet. Applejack took off at a gallop. She had to stop Big Macintosh to tell him there was another way. She needed to reach the recruitment office before he did. That proved easier than she expected. When she arrived, Big Macintosh was just sitting outside the office staring at the door. He cringed and shied away as he noticed her approach. "Big Macintosh," she called out, "we need to talk."
Yup.
He stared at the dirt, waiting for Applejack to speak. When she didn't, he decided to come clean.
I can't do it, AJ. I can't kill another pony. It's not for me. Even if it's for Bray.
Big Macintosh broke down into tears, and this time it was Applejack who embraced him. "I know, Sugar Cube, I know."
What are we gonna do?
He asked between sobs. "We're gonna grow apples, and we're gonna send them to war." Big Macintosh pushed Applejack away so he could look her in the eye.
What?
He asked flatly. "I was feeding Winona and then the idea hit me. Canned apples. They'll reach the soldiers and the soldiers can eat. We can help the war effort."
Jack, that'll ruin perfectly good apples.
Big Macintosh scolded her. "I know, Mac, but it's better than ruining a perfectly good Equestria, ain't it?" Big Macintosh and Applejack shared a long look.
I suppose you're right,
he conceded.
I wish I knew the road to you. I don't care how far, I won't stop trying. I wanna be right where you are.
And so, Sweet Apple Acres rapidly grew into a canning conglomerate fueled by a war-torn Equestria and funded by a massive military machine of equestrian might. It had taken them a couple of days to convince the rest of the family, but they all eventually caved, proving one thing: war really does change everything. even sweet apple acres. That crazy pony, Applejack muttered as she stepped into the house. What crazy pony? Applebloom asked from the kitchen. The one that showed up early today, claiming to know you. Where'd she take you anyway? We haven't seen you for hours. Applejack stepped into the family room, slowly taking off her work clothes. Yeah, she claimed I'm one of her best friends, and that we all saved Equestria from King Sombra before the war even started. Says Equestria is a better place, and that some pony changed the past, so it all went wrong. And then something about how this timeline isn't supposed to exist, and now she's trying to make things right.
I can't say there'd be anything wrong with that,
Big Macintosh commented, idly looking up over the edge of a newspaper he was reading. Victory at Manhattan, it declared in big bold letters. Really? Applejack? Don't you think that's a bit strange? Applebloom continued, carrying a fresh apple pie to the dinner table. I mean, she was an alicorn, right? If she's so special, why haven't we heard of her before? Don't know, Applejack replied, rolling her eyes. But if and she's right, I can't think of many things worse than what we've got right now. Supper's ready, Applebloom called upstairs as she set the pie at the table. Their father stood up from the sofa and stretched his limbs.
Well, I can't imagine things are any worse than this, wherever she's from, he said as he took his place at the table. She's probably just crazy, but I wish her the best of luck.
The smoke is clear. Sit alone with a beer and run through the rubble. Months of trouble in the end. The tears on your face, the sight of you walking away, and the memories drop and ring like bombs in my head. And I don't know if I could have done more. And I don't know if it was my fault or yours. So I'm still fighting after the war. Just my phone in the night could start the war again. Pull the trigger, press send and go. Catch a plane before sunset, kneel down and say come back. Say baby